Hey there, it's 3:50 p.m. and it's May 18th. This is a follow-up from the last video. The last video I made is called Royal Blood versus the Population. And it was kind of like wanting to follow up on, my views or what I believe um, these people were talking about this particular video, because I wish I would have paid more attention to, like, maybe have saved it at the time. But see, I watch a lot of YouTube videos on my Kindle, and my Kindle is not like, plugged into my regular YouTube channel, to where if I watch a video I can look through my saved watched um videos or something like that, to where I could retrieve it. But this video I saw, I'm thinking it was sometime a little bit before I found out about the CB Braganza thing, or a little bit sometime after. It was sometime within this time frame that I was watching this particular video, and it was talking about this guy who felt, like a resentment towards royal blooded people. Okay, in general. And he could have very well been talking about me, because I know that I'm featured in Chosen One videos a lot, a lot, a lot, right? And see, this is some sort of campaign that my family launched against me. I'm going to hold Rashawn and Lisa most likely responsible, as well as Tanya. Um, this is a form of blacklisting. You know what I mean? And I myself have never tried to use anything against anybody. I was unaware of my lineage. I was completely unaware of it. Okay, but I wanted to kind of just check on how I was the correct way, because when I think of verses like VS period, I keep forgetting, because some people write it with a capital V and sometimes an S, or should I write it with just a small v and s, or whatever. So I was checking it in my little what do you call it, AI type thing, I guess it's like a spell checker among other things. And so it ended up giving me this whole spew about this particular topic that I didn't ask for it to give me this, right? But it was kind of summarizing some information that I thought I'd share on this video, and I'm just going to read it really quick. So what I was reading was, it says, a conflict between the ruling elite and the general populace highlights a significant social divide. The struggle often manifests in various forms, including economic disparity, political disenfranchisement, and cultural alienation. As the elite maintain their power and privilege, the broader population frequently grapples with issues of inequality and lack of representation. This dynamic not only fuels social unrest, but also prompts calls for reform and greater accountability from those in positions of authority. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it right there. Now, these are not my words. This is what was generated on AI. Okay, so, but this must be a thought form, right, in a lot of people's minds, that there's something that we need to hold against people who are born from these special bloodlines. And I do believe that this is reflected in things like social media numbers. Okay. And like I said, I had no idea that I had any particular bloodline. But when I think of people who are in higher level positions, like, maybe people expected me to move into one of these positions or whatever, but I am just a lower level person, much like everyone else. Okay. And to think that, I have the world handed to me on a silver platter. If this is what you think, you are sadly mistaken. I have absolutely nothing, really. Okay. So I do know that a lot of people have talked about my beauty and something about royals working from home. Okay. And so my issue is this. Okay. Is this something that is the um, majority desire of royal individuals, right? The reason why I'm asking is because it would help me when it comes to looking for work. Okay, I said I don't know what to do at this point, and I'm trying my hardest, and I'm wondering, okay, I want to eliminate as much frustration in this situation as much as possible. Okay, who is it that dictates what royal people can and cannot do? Okay, the question I'm getting right now is something about United States white men. And I believe that this has something to do with maybe churches, okay? Churches making these decisions for people like myself of a particular ancestry that I had absolutely no control over whatsoever. Okay. So maybe, and I said, if this is a church initiative, right? Now the church knows that who CB Braganza was long before I had an inkling of who CB Braganza was when I was younger. You know what I mean? So I'm assuming that this particular guy who I saw on this particular video felt as though, I had no idea or interest or even thought for 1 minute that I was going to get milk my status as a special bloodline to get anything. Okay, because like I wasn't raised in church where somebody sat there and told me and gave me some sort of ceremony and acknowledged my bloodline. Nobody ever, said, "Hey Maria, you're King Solomon." I got to tell you, King Solomon's a big one. Okay. And I'm very proud to be King Solomon. But if anything, I would say my life has been a very big struggle because of it. Mainly because of the what goes on in the gossip chain. Absolute no control. So all my life I've been encountering all kinds of weird problems relating to me being the clone of King Solomon and nobody giving me any explanation as to why. And this all has a lot to do with this whole MK. Right now, in a lot of ways, because many of us have been victimized by things like MK Ultra, a lot of this, our healing is contingent upon us getting as much uh, rest and separation from a lot of outside stimulation. So I really can understand why some people of royal descent may choose to be working from home. Why? Because I suspect that a lot of people of royal descent, and I hope I'm not offending anybody. I'm trying to inform people who are special, okay? People who are special. A lot of times their families, and some of their families may be composed of people like my family structure, okay? Maybe not as nightmarish, but it could be the fact that some of you guys come from families that are extremely abusive. They may have used you for financial resources and they create these little hate campaigns out in the public without your knowledge. Like much like, my Lisa, I keep saying my sister, she was not my sister. The person that I was raised with and the other people that were I was raised with talk behind your back because, I would say what goes on in your DNA sometimes irritates people who do not understand. Like, I was thinking about how uh, people of certain ancestry, we carry over our traits. We carry over our traits from our past life. I don't believe this was fully understood by people like Russell and people like Joseph Smith. I don't think, because people didn't really care about psychology back then. They cared about, it was what it is. It is what it is. Okay. And so they don't understand how damaging it is for white people to expect black people or any other person of color to look like them, act like them, have the same mannerisms as them. It's not going to work. Okay. So seeing CB Braganza, and I will say CB Braganza was a sharp dresser and a very exotic dresser at that, right? And it's because CB Braganza did not really have a place to call his destination, right? He was from Ethiopia, but it seems as though CB Braganza, or in all his incarnations, was in one place after another. He was obviously very inspired by eclectic taste as he spent time with Captain CD in traveling places like India. I noticed, like when I was Maria Gordon, but in my younger years as Maria Gordon, I found myself extremely attracted to bell-sleeved clothes, like clothes with bold paisley print and clothes that had like bell sleeves and stuff like that. So when I saw that CB Braganza picture, I knew that was me. I knew it was me. And see that our same taste, our same likes, our mannerisms, all of those things get transferred into the next life, right? And see, these maybe old customs, old behaviors, old mannerisms could be considered weird to our common family. And when I say common, I'm not in any way trying to be disrespectful, but I'm using this as an old term. Like, they would call people commoners, okay? People who were not of royal blood. To them, you're over the top or you're just doing too much when they don't understand that this is in our blood. Okay, and I really do feel as though this is interesting information, especially from like coming from a scientific standpoint, because I understand that I was one of Mengelé's creations in some ways. Okay, so when you think about this from studying it from human behavior and their perspective in our innate uh, behavioral patterns, right? This is really deep information. But anyway, so looking at it from like a social standpoint, what is it like to be raised in a family when you are the prissy one? You are the prissy one, okay? And I've seen how uh certain people gravitate to certain things. Like, um you might gravitate towards, okay, like for example, um things that are foreign. You may have traveled in your past life. I know that at CB Berganza, my eclectic taste in clothes definitely comes from my travels. It definitely comes from my travels, right? And so, like I said, when I saw myself as CB Berganza with the bell sleeve clothes, and I know when I first started picking up sewing as Maria Gordon, those were the first things. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to sew, is because I did not find enough bell sleeve clothes at that time. And I was still hell bent on wearing those kind of clothes, because we want to be in what makes us comfortable, and this what makes us comfortable. So if you were raised, with commoners in your vicinity, or people who are not royal, who don't share your pre-existence or whatever, right? They're sitting here looking at you like you're weird, or you're over the top. Where do you come up with all these interests? Well, because we are very special, and we carry a special signature, a very special signature. Okay. So in some ways, it makes sense that a lot of clones would prefer to work at home, but there might be some clones who want to work at home, want to work outside the home. And by making that a limitation, please consider that a little bit more. Now, I'm not asking for myself. I'm not asking for myself, but I would say that what happened to me is a social issue that covers like so many topics. Okay, it covers race, religion, marital status, blah, 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 blah. I am one of these people that literally deal with all kinds of issues because of my protected status, as me being all of the things that creates a lot of problems for people, struggles. Okay. So, because I'm a protected individual and somebody who has enough struggles, okay, I do not need people like networks causing me problems. You know what I mean? And that was a nightmare. Okay. So, I would like to know if, I know I have some subscribers here on this channel, and some of these people were originally perps, and you probably always going to be perps, and some of you guys might be actual targeted individuals. For you guys who want to answer this question and weigh in on what you think about the general population and how they treat people of royal ancestry, I would like to know. Okay, I'm tired of you have to figure out how these things work and what people are really thinking. What do they really think? You know what I mean? To me, I have never, when I was younger, right, and didn't never realize that I had any special DNA or anything in me, I never felt envy or competitiveness towards people of royal descent. It never occurred to me. To me, they were always in this particular place, and that's who they were. Like, it never occurred to me to sit here and hate like the queen or anything like that, because to me, she was the queen. This is who she is. I never thought to do that. It just was what it is. So, I mean, I just want to know what your feedback is. What you think about people and their kind of, I'm going to say, it seems like uh, hatred. Okay, it honestly feels as though there was a lot of hatred for me because of what my family created, and the hate crime that these people put against me, taking, and I want to emphasize the dangers of making these sort of issues an online issue. Okay, so I feel as though it's very important, when you recognize online gossip spreading and getting out of control, people need to start reporting these things and taking it very seriously. Okay, because at this point in my life, I'm tired of people of struggling for issues that I was unaware of, and this is a good example of how people get in situations of human trafficking and get targeted. Okay, and oftentimes this is the very vehicles that get used. They may be focusing on their sibling, for people who are of royal descent. They may be focusing on their, like in my case, I'm their adoptive sibling. Okay. So they may have been focusing, wanting to vent, and they'll sit there and talk crap about you. And people are always willing to talk crap, period. Okay. And I understand that this is human behavior that a lot of what I'm going to call commoners exhibit. And why do I say a lot of commoners? There seems to be, and I'm not an us versus them type person. Okay. But obviously, if you're somebody who is well cultured, right, or somebody who is well read, you're going to behave in a different manner than people who aren't. You're going to, somebody who doesn't think, for example, I think methodically, and a lot of people who do not, they feel like, oh, you're just over the top, or they want to roll their eyes, when in fact I'm not trying to offend anybody. This is just who I am. You know what I mean? And it's like you're asking somebody who's been this way for all their incarnations to suddenly revert into behavior that I know better not to exhibit, or be a part of. So a lot of people of royal ancestry are like more cultivated. Okay. And I'm not saying everybody. I'm as though they are. Okay. And see, that to me is an asset. It's a good thing. Right. But I feel as though me being sucked into this issue of the being bullied by people, and it seems as though I was being bullied even before I even knew that I had any royal blood at all. So anyway, the message I'm getting right now is something about me. Yeah, I have trying to communicate, and I'm taking it one thing at a time. I can't make a bunch of phone calls in the day, but I had to test my phone earlier today, and my phone, it seems like the program that I installed on my phone is working. But yeah, I'm doing what I can. Okay. I'm tired of, people not understanding employment laws. I'm tired of people, operating in a way that makes it very difficult after creating problems for me when I didn't ask for it. You know what I mean? And see, a lot of mentality is, yeah, I'm very glad that my son is working. Okay. But see, like relying to contribute as well. You know what I mean? I tell you how angry it makes me to be forced into this situation against my will, when I was just like a girl who came into this community, and then I had people following me. That's a 5:30, destroying, manipulating me, and trying to make me associate with them when I don't want any association with them. And I'm beyond emotionally, you know, some sort of, I'm alone, and that you, I cannot help that. You might be comfortable with a koozie around your beer, your Coors or your Bud Light in the evening, right? You have to have that little koozie, and you feel more comfortable and at home with it. This is who I am. I should not be blamed for that. You know what I mean? And these things are very much a part of my identity. They are extremely embedded in my identity, and nobody had the right to negotiate on my behalf for employment. And I'm beyond upset about it. The message I'm getting right now is I silenced the mouths of that old network and the professional people, and proved I never needed them. I didn't need you guys. I didn't need you guys. And I don't want to keep bringing it up and over and over and over again, because it really needs to be. But I got on here because I need to understand exactly with. And what I'm dealing with is like I'm dealing with the aftermath and trying to figure out what is my best method, what is my best angle, because I have to communicate with people. You know what I mean? And I'm tired of the struggle. Okay, I'm tired of your bullying. I'm tired of your, whatever. I have the right to exist as Maria Gordon, the person who likes the things that I look like, and unfortunately, I don't know people in the industries, the specific industries, the glamour industries, the whatever industries, but I'm trying my best to get people as I can. I mean, I can't do any more than I can. You know what I mean? All I know is that if churches or religious groups or underground groups, which is what I believe Lisa would belong to, and they worked in certain covert manners and included other individuals that worked in even bigger companies such as PAS and SHRM, right? Because they're basing it and completely ignoring employment law and using this whole umbrella, like this whole multi-denominational Christian group as some sort of umbrella, right? And then excluding people of royal descent. Because this is exactly what I think what they do. They do a lot of improper violations of employment law. I'm saying this because this is what I see. And I'm only speaking up not because I'm trying to thwart anybody's plans. I honestly have a serious issue that deserves to be addressed. It's an important issue. And see, it seems as though when these sort of issues arrive, it looks very much like genocide, and I have to address that. And see, this is the reason why I resent Lisa and these people doing these sort of thoughtless acts. Okay, and because this is why it is very serious. You can threaten a person's life. You can end up killing a person because you do things like this. Okay, this is why it is against the law. You do not mark a person for any form of discrimination or any sort of exclusion. It is a very serious a very serious issue. Okay, and I don't appreciate it. Okay, I appreciate who I am, and now that I come to understand who I am, but I have never ever thought, well, I expect to get anything just because I'm a royal person. Okay, the message I'm getting right now is that yes, I do choose to attract, not because I choose to attract upscale individuals because upscale individuals may be more cultured. They may be understanding, maybe they may be able to communicate in a way where they know not to bring up certain issues that are meant to cause harassment or um, a hostile environment. Okay, like obviously, I don't. To me, it's improper for you to sit here just because a person wears nice clothes does not mean that they want sexual attention. Okay, and I would say that the way that you identify somebody who wants sexual attention is completely different than somebody who's just well dressed. Now, I'm a well dressed individual. I am modestly dressed. What I mean by that, you see absolutely no cleavage whatsoever. Okay. And I was thinking about this because I was thinking about making a presentation very much along the lines of sexual harassment because some people will say, well, what if this woman is wearing this, 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 and this, right? Okay. If I was a dude, I still would ignore her. And not ignore her okay, let's just say, for example, I was a manager. I was a dude, right? I was a manager of a company, and one of the employees came to work dressed very skimpily, right? With very low revealing her cleavage and whatever, okay? And some people do this on purpose, right? If I was a male manager, I would most likely talk to someone of female management, right? And just remind her that there is a certain code of ethic or work attire that is acceptable to wear, right? Um, in the workplace, okay? And see, there's a difference between somebody who dresses provocative and somebody who dresses professional. And I do believe that I dress professionally. And I honestly feel as though whether you're royal or not, that it should be across the board, period. Okay. Just like when I was, the reason why, like, for example, my son just recently started a job, right? And like I said, I don't like wearing uniforms because I'm an expressive person. I like expressing my thought. But that is something, as much as my son has a lot in common with me, we also have our differences, right? And he wears a uniform to his work. But my son doesn't seem to mind. The good thing about where he is that they do have multiple colors of his shirt, so he doesn't have to feel like he's wearing the same thing every day. Okay, but he doesn't mind doing that, and he's comfortable, and he's okay with that. And if he's comfortable with it, I'm fine with that. That's cool, right? But for me, no, no. I know. Okay, I got to feel it. Okay, and the reason why I have to feel it is because I feel I'm somebody who needs intensity. Okay, and I really been thinking about how long I've probably been here over and over and over again. There's a burnout that I feel. I always need more stuff. Maybe other people might need stuff because when I think about who we are in our incarnations, right? Some of us were very high class. Maybe some of us had a lot of money in our incarnations where we had expensive type stuff. I mean, you don't ever want to feel if you were from a family as abusive as mine, if you're somebody who feels more comfort, right, wearing certain things, and you have a commoner family who doesn't understand your attachment for these things, they're going to bully you over it, just like my family bullied me, which they didn't have the right to. Okay. If I am going to say that I am extra, I am proud to be extra. Okay. Why? Because I know that there's nothing outside of me that excites me, intrigues me, or even gets my attention. Okay, and I'm just being upfront and honest. That's knowing who you are. And since I know who I am, I know that I'm not going to be happy just, you know, just sitting there or sitting in a house with blank walls or anything. I always got to add a little bit of color. And since I can't afford to go to a expensive gallery, art gallery, and like purchase a piece of a painting from somebody, then I might my art might look pathetic, but at least it's comfortable and at least it's nice. Okay, something about my son, and people are recognizing my discovery is cool. And then something about royal people work from home. So, do you think that it's fair that royal people work from home, or do you think that it should be their choice? I would like to hear a feedback on that. Do you think it should be, uh, should it be that way? You know what I mean? Because I don't feel deprived if I'm not going to work in an office. To me, as long as I'm able to work at somewhere, I guess I'd be okay. But there was a time where I wanted to be in the office. Say, what if, and I would say for some royal people, especially if your family isolates you in a way, you're going to need to be out and about and have some sort of way to get out and enjoy yourself. People need socialization. Okay. It is a normal human function. People need socialization. So for people, and I would say for me, it's difficult because I hate most socialization, especially if you've been a victim of being a targeted individuals, because a lot of these people come with you, they're just mouthpieces for your perps. So interacting with these people is a goddamn nightmare. Okay. And I don't enjoy it. I know I'm not going to get insincerity. I know their value of their friendship is worth crap. So, I don't feel any happy glow. I'm not getting any oxytocin or any sort of charge out of it. It's absolutely worthless to me. Right. So, finding sincere connections when you are of these special bloodlines, where do they come from if you don't have a good family? Because I don't have a good family. I have an abusive family. I had one. Okay, the message I'm saying and getting is I silenced the mouths of the old network and the professional network, and now they know that they didn't need them. I didn't. I didn't. And see, the reason why when I first came here into Bakersfield, why you were so quick to discredit me was number one, because of CV Braganza and because of my race. Okay. And because these people were acting and see, and what oftentimes when uh, human traffickers, they come in and they always act like, oh, I'm concerned about so and so. Okay, I'm concerned about so and so. And so they'll get the mayor's attention. At that time, it was Harvey Hall. And then, they know how to work the system to get other people's participation. Okay, now that you know what gang stalking is, it's very important that you pay attention to not let this happen again. Why? Because what you're doing is you are playing out a very dangerous crime out loud in the open. Okay, this is why human trafficking is so tragic, because it is a crime that gets played out in the open. Okay, and so that's what happened to me. Okay, and so that's where we're at. So let me see what I moved. Something about my father, my little cabbie doll. I can't even believe how heartless these people are. Okay, I have every right to keep my cabbie doll. Anyway, the message I'm getting right now is something about me reaching out. My son's proud of me. I'm very glad he is. I'm very proud of him. People look at me as a beautiful person. I would look at myself as rather, I think I'm really plain, right? And I actually can see the androgyny in me. Like when I say the androgyny, this comes from the cloning issue. Okay, I honestly, I've noticed it even before I realized I was a clone, and now I understand where that comes from. Also, my message I'm getting right now is something about my bloodline. Yeah, I guess my son understands how our bloodline is. Okay. And people must have informed him of that. And I remember trying to talk to him about it. But like I said, it seems as though this was an issue that my family was committed to not telling me. Well, now the cat's out of the bag. Everybody knows that I am who I am, and I face the world as who I am. Although it's not a big deal, it is what it is. And yes, I am CV Braganza, and I think that CV Braganza has every right to hold his head up high. I'm proud of who he is. I am proud of who he is. Okay. And I think he's been misunderstood. Like, no, I am not an enemy of the Christian church. I'm sorry that people made it out to be that way. You know what I mean? But what I am an enemy of is people who use religion as an excuse to hurt other people. Okay, and C.B. Braganza has always been somebody who had Christ consciousness. Like I said, it was that lack of Christ consciousness that made it so that I didn't belong to any of these churches. Okay, so the message I'm getting right now is something about acquainting myself with CPAs. A lot of these CPAs, some of these people are not here anymore. Just so you know, the message I'm getting right now is something about my reputation being good. I'm glad my reputation's good. Okay, I know when I was younger. See, I was also thinking today too. When I was really young, people in my community, they must knew I was they knew I was CB Braganza, and it seems as though people held me to a very high standard. I remember I was in first grade, and this girl did something, right? And I was telling the teacher what this girl did. She did some sort of offensive thing to me, right? And then the teacher tried to, and this was, to me, I don't think it was a professional thing for the teacher to do. This should have been handled just between me and the teacher and the other kid. But the teacher brought it out in the open front of the class, and she said, "How many times has Maria ever lied?" Maria never lies. Now, throughout my years as a child and teenage years, of course, I've told, like, tall tales or whatever. Like, that's pretty normal, right? Because especially it's important for people to know who they are. Why? Because if the issue of what I find interesting about taking somebody of a particular bloodline, okay, or just anybody in general, and then putting them into an environment that they're not really supposed to be in, right? For whatever reason, right? You're going to adapt some of their traits. Okay, so if certain things like certain things that I would think I did that from my past that relate to selfishness or thoughtlessness, a lot of this was me thinking that it was condoned behavior because my family did it, right? But then as I got older, I realized I had an internal conscience that would prevent me from doing these things. There were certain things I remember doing when I was younger that I'm horrified that I did now. So it is this internal drive that keeps me doing what I do. Like, I don't want to ever do that again. I was ashamed that I ever did this, and this, and I don't want to do it anymore. See, I understand that, it's a lot easier to get by in the world by being a gang stalker, by taking those incentives. I think a lot of people, they bully up on other people. They swear their loyalty as for some sort of incentive. Okay, they're dirty, they're low down scum. Okay, but see, I'm the kind of person, I am a very honest person. I have developed myself into an honest person because somewhere deep down inside I knew that that was not who I was. So this is what I'm talking about. Why I found, this identifies me because I know that people had noticed and talked about me being some sort of special religious person when I was a kid. And I know that Tanya used to allude to that conversation a lot when we were kids, as she took interest in my dreams and stuff like that. So I am seriously a person who wanted, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a nun. I thought about that. I thought about all those sort of things. Why? Because I always wanted to align myself with what was divine. And see, my family knew that I was studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, and they would criticize it. They criticized everything I did. They criticized anything and everything I did. And even though I have to say, as a teenager, because most teenagers, what they were interested in doing was going to each other's houses, going to the arcade, which I did, right? But for teenagers to take an interest in religion, okay, for interest in religion, that's me trying to make a decision on how I was supposed to live as a teenager, seemed very odd. But when you think about it, looking back from all the years that went by, it seems as though I was serious about creating some sort of lifestyle as an adult. That to me is a very responsible thing to do. I was thinking ahead. Okay, which they never understood me. Okay, they never understood me, and I get it. Okay, but I realized that those things were not for me, and I come to find out as CB Braganza, the reason why I found a lot of issues that I conflicted with a lot of mainstream religions, because I had my own religious view. But my own religious view was not separate in the idea of Christ consciousness. I never abandoned that, and I don't understand why people thought that I was. It could very well be is that things like the New Thought movement was not obvious with their alignment with Christ-like values. Like you see a lot of churches, they usually have things like the cross, okay, that they display. Not every religion feels comfortable with the cross. Some people see that in itself differently. Okay, I see it a little bit differently. It's people's choices to wear the cross, right? But then some people don't feel comfortable with it. They look at the cross as wearing the cross as okay. Let's just say, for example, somebody blasted your grandmother with a gun, right? That's traumatizing. See, people say, well, we love Jesus, we respect Jesus. Okay, in the same vein of thought, why do you want to wear the revolver that killed your grandmother? Okay, some people look at it that way. Okay, I know that Jehovah's Witnesses, for several reasons, and they wanted to be as close as to the biblical accounts as to what Jesus really died on. They eliminated the cross, period. So they showed Jesus when he was executed on a torture stake and not a cross. They show it completely different. To me, it is not important on how Jesus died, whether he died on a crucifix or he died on a what do you call it, torture stake. Okay, the fact is that they persecuted an innocent man who truly was and exhibited signs of divinity. And even at that time, they were naysayers and who were happy to see him die. Much like in the situation of my persecution. You see what I'm talking about? This is where the connection is that somebody has extreme high standards relating to spirituality, has done nothing to deserve the sort of hatred, but yet gets it anyway. Right? So this is where I align with this whole idea or this concept of Christ, right? This is where it comes from. The message I'm getting right now is that I silence their mouths of the network. People are recognizing me as a well-known MK Ultra survivor. That's exactly what I am. I am definitely one of those, you know. And so, yeah, I'm trying to get by with trying to practice ways of modifying my mood. Does those mood modification techniques involve marijuana? No. Marijuana is exclusively used to relax, calm down, and to sleep. Okay. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay. So anyway, something about yeah, people understand the need to be fit in the right work environment. Okay. And I honestly do feel as though that if I had applied for jobs and just got hired without this particular network, I would have never made any effort to, like, upset anything, disrupt anything. All I really wanted to do was work. You know what I mean? And I'm very unhappy with the situation that they put me in. You know what I mean? So it really does matter when it comes to work. And I hope that people are considering having more of a humane work environment, because the issue of stalking, uh, breaking it down, of people condoning stalking in the workplace, why it's something that should be seriously looked at. And the reason why is because what seems like innocent fun can end up very tragic. Okay, in this situation, we had people who were a part of a distant social group, like the kinds of 533, the Collins collaboration, getting me a job at Murray Family Farms. This issue happened over at Organized Sports as well. These people are all friends, they'll call themselves friends. Okay, sorry. Anyway, they all call themselves friends, and the employer, Steve Murray, Vicky Murray, her family, whatever, everything. Okay, so we have Lisa calling in, maybe even encouraging people. I mean, Lisa or members of the 533 clan or Bruce's family, whatever, creating problems in Lisa. Right. And then if you feel like, you've been mistreated and you've been dealt some sort of injustice, you're going to try to make these people stop doing what they're doing. But then you have this family member and the employer, right, who may be collaborating because they have some sort of self-interest in why they're bullying you, or they might be doing it because they sincerely feel as though you need to be disciplined. Well, the workplace is the last place to do it. And then you deal with these people who want to inflict your lifestyle preferences on you, and they want to use the employment arena to do it. Okay, that's a bad choice, a very bad choice. So this is one of the reasons why I believe a lot of these issues relating to people's workplace injustice, they don't get resolved. Like I don't talk to some of these people, but I've seen videos on Instagram shitloads on YouTube and a lot on TikTok. Now I don't go on TikTok very much, but a lot of these videos pretty much the same content about people talking about their jobs, being harassed, being bullied, being all kinds of things. Anything that you can mention that you saw on those charts of protected class, there's all kinds of violations. And the reason why a lot of these employers think it's okay to get away with these violations is, number one, they're associated with your family. It's all your mom told us to do this, or she agreed to do this. They put you in this situation. We understood that it was okay to do this. Well, we have stalking laws and we have issues relating to human trafficking. Okay, just because that's your mom does not mean that she has the right to, number one, dictate your employment and have you stalked all over the goddamn place. Okay, this is what I'm trying to chisel down in things relating to employment law, because these common things that people do all the time makes it so that they ignore employment laws, and the person who is the recipient of that job is the one who deals with the brunt of their foolish decision. Okay, because what happened at Murray Family Farms, I should have been able to sue. Okay. But see, everybody was like, hey, well, that's her family. That's her family. Or maybe they were using, the whole issue of, well, she's smoking pot and her family's sitting there trying to tell her not to. Well, you know what they should have did? If they were really that concerned, they should have called me up on the phone, right? And we could have had like a Zoom meeting or something like that. Okay. This is what I'm saying is people are using the employment sector in ways where they shouldn't. Okay. So the message I'm getting right now is something about make art, dress cool, and live my life. I'm free. Good. I'm very glad. Also, I'm glad that now you understand, or I get the feeling that the people from my past now understand why I'm feeling the way that I do and why I deal with trauma, right? Because I am a law-abiding citizen, especially when it comes to anything relating to human rights. Okay. And I was so comfortable in my feeling, in my belief in this. And like I said, sometimes we project this on other people. We assume that because we know these things and because these people were telling me that they went to college for 4 consecutive years, right? They have their bachelor's degree. I figured you'd know these things. Okay, and I'm pretty sure that this is what is taught in schools. I'm pretty sure that it must be employment law. Hopefully, okay, because I have not studied or any other textbooks as of recently, and maybe I'm going to at some point. I talked about the last part of my project. Yes, I'm going to work on my project. I'm dead serious. There's a lot of things on my to-do list. Maybe I'm not getting any feedback, maybe not, but I do believe that I have good things that I choose to produce. I choose to produce these things. Okay. Tell me about my son being in private health, people recognizing me as a genius and a survivor of MK Ultra, and I am, and I feel as though I must have died at CB Braganza knowing a lot of stuff anyway. Okay, this is the reason why when I came back as Maria Gordon, I just picked up where I left off. And I was also thinking too, a couple of days ago, I remember a phrase that I used to say as a kid, like, everywhere, somewhere around the world, you have a lookalike. And I used to say this with such conviction, like I believed it. Okay. I really believe that I used to say this because this is what I observed as CB Braganza, because we talked about this whole cloning thing. So I must have acknowledged this as CB Braganza before. And when as Maria Gordon, I'm just remembering picking up elements of who CB Braganza was. The sad part is that people that I grew up with, they made it up in their minds when their families or their churches told them about CB Braganza that they were going to hate me. Okay, and when you have a hardwired hatred, it doesn't matter what a person does to you, how kind that person is, they are going to see what they want to see. Okay, even people in my own family. And see, I need to stop saying people in my own family. They were not my family. There was no maternal bond between Mary Gordon and me. Okay, this is the reason why she treated me in the way that she did. Okay, so this is why I'm talking about what happened. I'm unraveling what happened. Okay, because no sensible person that truly cares about another individual would have put them in this situation. Absolutely not. Okay. But the individuals that did put me in this situation did so because they were going to benefit from it. Okay. This was an act of hatred, period. Okay. And this is the reason why I do not forgive my family. The message I'm getting right now is that it is unanimous. People agree it is over the age of 18. See, and some of these things that are so elementary, you would think that a toddler would know them. Okay. And this was all done by people who I was associated with. The very same people who hated my guts because they kept saying I was nothing, I was not educated, I was nothing, absolutely garbage, because I was bullied by them in high school. Okay. So the message I'm getting also right now is that my divinity has been proven, my words are golden, and I am highly regarded. See, so all these years, they wanted to know exactly who I was, and because I was not a member of a church, they just assumed, and apparently the things that go around me, right, including my father's apparition and all these supernatural things that occur against me, they were wondering how in the world is this happening? What kind of power is around Maria? I am of the divine. Okay, I am of the divine. And yes, I am very glad that I'm free. I'm very glad that I'm free. Meaning, like, I'm glad that I made my understanding known. Then also there's people who also need to. I hope I brought understanding to people, right? Because there are certain things that people do that you think, okay, well, just at first glance, what this person does might seem unusual. It might seem unusual for an adult to, like, for example, sleep with a toy or whatever. You don't know the kind of trauma that other people live through. Okay. And I understand that my family seemed committed to misunderstanding me and thinking that I was crazy. Okay. And they had other people involved in this because, yeah, like I said, if you're a victim of gang stalking or human trafficking, their number one goal is to, number one, get you either incarcerated, get you institutionalized, make you homeless, or whatever. Okay. So these people assumed that I was crazy because of, number one, my spiritual views. I have every right to believe this. And I can tell you several different Christian denominations who believe in spiritual things like this. They believe in, number one, manifestations. They believe in healing. They believe in speaking in tongues. They believe in the supernatural side. I have every right to believe this. Okay. And then these apparitions, obviously, there is a soul that actually, to me, this is a holy thing to where this should actually make Christians feel good. There is another side to our lives. Okay. Once we die, we have a soul. Or this is confirmation of a hope. A heavenly hope. Whether you choose to come back here on the earth or you choose to come back to heaven, life continues on. When it's time for you to go in a positive state. Leave your nonsense here on the earth so that you can have a clean conscience. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. I've been yapping long enough. I do need to step out for a while. Should have got some sunlight earlier. Let me see, what's the temperature? It's 80 degrees today outside. Whew. Okay, the temperature's rising. But I'm going to wrap up this video. Let me know in the comment box what you think. Okay, do you feel as though to me, it sounds as though there is a certain, this sort of kind of hatred towards, my bloodline. And I'm tired of it. Okay. And I would say that my family ignited it out of their ignorance and their foolishness. And I understand, like, when it comes to my issue of having superior traits, but I would say that I'm rather humble about it. You know what I mean? I'm not somebody who is trying to be arrogant, but I do acknowledge the fact that I have them. But the fact that we have low social media and that people are trying to box you in by, basically isolating people of royal ancestry, do you think that's right? I'd like to hear what you have to say. I'm going to wrap up this video. Take care.